Howdy, howdy, gentlemen. It is just now 7:30. I think this is the first time since we have started doing this live stream that we've been sort of kind of early, I guess. So,
No, or we're a day late, depending
yeah,
on
maybe so. Yeah, we are literally a day late.
exactly.
Because
So
this week has been thrown off for me because of moving it to today. Because I have gone the entire day thinking that it was Tuesday. So
Sorry about
if you're
that.
recording, if you're doing discussing who, it must be Tuesday.
yeah, indeed,
Yeah.
indeed. Kind of like how the colors are going up. I've tried to imitate Clarence with, and I don't want to shine it out. I've got a blue light under me, so and I'm trying to imitate Clarence. You know, be all
That's right.
professional like Clarence. But
People watching us on the video stream will see that his place is he's kicked out by a lovely red, and I'm in the restroom under the nightclub.
yes,
As one loves to be.
As well, it's fun while it lasts, apparently. So
and since we're talking about what's behind us, believe it or not, this particular I changed the thing that is behind us. I've got the Day of the Doctor. This is something that I bought and I have never unrolled it until today. This was something that I bought when we were at one of the Hulantas, and it's been rolled up ever since. And so I bought a place, and I said, okay, if I'm moving back where I used to record, I'm going to put the Day of the Doctor up.
nice.
So, Kyle, quickly I have to ask, did you Photoshop the image that we now see on the screen?
What image? Oh yeah, I didn't Photoshop it, but I did.
Why does it look like Tom Brady for some reason?
No, I didn't Photoshop it, but what I did do, because it was a smaller image, and I let Canva do the make it larger. And after I started looking at it, because if you kind of look at the people's eyes,
Yeah.
they kind of have like little beady eyes. So anyway.
At least they have the right number of fingers.
At least they do. At least they do. All right. So we know what we're here for. We're here to discuss who. So as we always say, here we go again.
Again.
The Discussing Network presents Discussing Who, a Doctor Who podcast. I'm Kyle Jones, and I want to start this week by welcoming back Lee Shackelford. Mr. Shackelford, how are you?
I am well, very well indeed. I've got some stressful things going on in my personal life, and it just makes me crawl on my hands and knees to when I get to hang out with the two of you and discuss Who, including Doctor Who Torchwood sub-universe. So here we are.
Indeed,
Just glad to be
here
here.
we are. And here we are, Mr. Brown. Clarence Brown, how are you?
I'm doing great. Happy to come on the show as we all come together on the show.
Are we going to do cum jokes for an hour? Because
This has made, let me say it one more time.
I got him.
This has made my day because of all three of us. You, my friend, were the
I don't know
one
what you're talking about.
who I
Okay,
least
all right.
expected to make that joke.
I have no idea what you're talking about, sir.
Okay. Maybe
It's tea time here.
it is tea time,
yeah.
but it's even a more important
Not on
time.
Torchwood. Okay.
But it is an even more important time because if we were to go back when we normally record Discussing Who, which would have been yesterday, it would have been someone's, I don't know, maybe birthday, Clarence Brown?
Yeah, I'm old. Thank you for pointing that out
Hey,
for me.
25 is not old. Come
No.
on.
I wish.
Yeah.
Wish I was a quarter.
Well, since both of us are older than you,
Yeah, exactly.
you can turn that down if you want to. But,
So,
yep.
with all seriousness, though, happy birthday. Glad you're here tonight. Hope you had an awesome birthday and wishing you the best for the year to come. Cheers to you.
Yeah.
Thank you, kind sirs.
You're
We're
welcome.
glad you were born.
Indeed. And glad that you put up with the two of us on a weekly basis.
They're perks. It's a perk, man.
Oh, good.
It's a feature.
Indeed.
When Grace in the chat says, enjoy your first legal drink. Yeah.
So, got to ask you, Lee Shackelford,
Yeah.
if we have someone watching or listening for the very first time, what do you like telling people?
I like saying heaven knows you got other things you could be doing, possibly better, more constructive things. But we appreciate the fact that you've chosen to spend this time with us, just discussing who. So thank you very much.
All right. And Clarence, you have something you also like telling people.
Yeah, I'd like to say, join us aboard the TARDIS. Join us. You can support the show by subscribing, leaving a review, telling a friend. If you have anything you want us to know, you can send that in to discussingwho@gmail.com or at discussingwho on any and all social media.
Indeed, indeed. And before we move on, I do want to give a quick shout out to our friends Tasha from After the Snap Movies and TV, and of course Wind Grace. Both are in the chat. Both are on YouTube. So those two channels, the Wind Grace Project and After the Snap Movies and TV, check them out. Please give them a subscribe, and always love having them in the chat. So thank you both for being here. So guys, do you have any other things before we move on? Any other news or anything you want to bring up before we move on?
Not from me.
All right, Clarence, what about you?
Nothing at all, sir.
All right. Well, that means that I get to say, for anyone watching or listening, if you have not seen Day 1, which is the second episode of the first series of Torchwood, put us on pause, go out, watch the episode, come back, because from this moment forward, spoilers. Alrighty, the spoiler warning has gone out, and we are back to review Day 1. Day 1 is the second episode of the first series of Torchwood, airing on BBC Three, like the preceding episode, on the 22nd of October, 2006. Clarence Brown, it's your birthday, so I'll start with you.
You know, man, my plan was to conjure up a Macho Man Randy Savage voice when I said this, but I didn't want to blow out everybody's ears, so I decided against that. But I wanted to say, what are you going to do when the purple sex cloud monster comes for you? And that pretty much sums it up for me.
That's it. I thought that was Galactus.
Well,
Okay. Lee Shackelford, what say ye?
Well, as I was quick to point out to Kyle in chat later on, I hadn't seen this episode, I think, since it aired. And so I was just kind of watching it with my mouth open, because one of my guilty pleasures is a very strange little film from 1982, made in the U.S. by a Russian crew, believe it or not, called Liquid Sky. And the audacious plot of Liquid Sky is that an alien entity comes to Earth and possesses a young woman and turns her into a nymphomaniac, because the aliens love the experience, the taste, if you will, of the human endorphins released during orgasm. But the downside of this is that her people, her lovers, die when they climax. So, and someone in the film makes the joke that means that they come and go at the same time. So, is Chibnall aware of Liquid Sky?
he has to be.
Did he think that maybe nobody would know or connect it? Or, I mean, it is kind of an obscure film, is Liquid Sky. But anyway, so I enjoyed this episode, but I just kept thinking, man, this is Liquid Sky. So whatever.
You know, I'm like you, Lee. I've watched this one time before this. You know, I've watched Torchwood through once, enjoyed Torchwood through once, and never went back and revisited them. That said, I knew that there were adult themes coming, but this, to me, being the second episode out of the canon, or whatever you want to say, it firmly said, this isn't Tea Time Doctor Who.
Nope.
This is not, even in regards to how maybe TV has changed since 2006 to 2024, this is still not tea time, Doctor
No.
Who.
Yeah,
Clarence, you look like you're thinking something.
yeah,
What?
yeah. And I wonder, have our collective television watching um, thoughts changed over the past 20 years? Because I think if I had saw this when it came out, maybe I would have been like, "Oh wow, they're really going going at
Hmm.
it in this show." But as I watched it now, I feel like, "Huh, that was tastefully done." So I don't know.
Yeah.
Maybe we
Well,
have
it's all
changed over the
relative,
years.
right?
Hmm.
Yeah.
My wife and I were watching something on TV the other night, and we was interrupted by a commercial for a razor designed to uh, shave your pubic hair, and it was practically well, it really was. It's demonstrated in the commercial,
Mm.
Okay.
and she and I just sort of looked at each other across the room, like, "Well, that happened." Um, you know, and we're old enough to say, "Can you imagine that commercial being on
Yeah,
network television?" And
they
you
would
know,
ban TV.
But
that's right.
if you think about it, even in a different, well, this is in a different context, but in the same region, I should say. But I can remember watching soap operas as a kid, and there would be advertisements during soap operas because predominantly women were who
Right.
watched soap operas for
Hmm.
feminine products of
Sure.
whatever type of feminine product there might be. So yes, this may have been a little bit more graphical, but this was, if you didn't know what those feminine products were, you wouldn't understand the commercial,
Yeah.
but still it was what it was, you know.
Well, and for a lot of us, that was very educational. You said, "Oh, okay, I didn't know that. Now I know."
So let me ask this
Mm.
question based off of what we're talking about. Is there room in sci-fi as a genre for adult themed programs like Torchwood, or more adult themes, or should everything be family friendly? Is there room for adult themed content sci-fi?
Wow, I would say emphatically yes. I don't. I mean, Harlan Ellison always preferred the term speculative fiction. And if you're going to say that, then it means that there are no borders, no boundaries, and no ceiling. You have to be able to go anywhere and explore anything. Um, and if we're going to put massive violence, for one thing, off the table, which nobody has ever suggested, or exploring every aspect of human sexuality, then you know why in the world would we rule that out?
Clarence?
That's
Yeah.
what I think.
What do you think?
Yeah, I totally agree. And if we go back to the 70s, and I'm just now kind of getting caught up on some of these things like Logan's Run and
Hmm.
Barbarella. And there was even like a Jane Fonda movie I was watching on Tubi where she was on some planet, but it was all kind of sexploitation stuff, but
Hmm.
in space. So I don't
That's
know.
Barbarella.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I don't know if it was looked at as being we can do space stuff now, so let's just do our risque stuff in space,
Yeah.
or they were trying to be progressive. In some ways, I think they were, especially on Logan's Run when it was sort of like Tinder before we had Tinder. But
Yeah.
but yeah, it's interesting. I think as long as in the context of Doctor Who, as long as it's separate, it's loosely connected on thing. And we know this is on a different, I forget which BBC channel this originally aired on, but it was a different
BBC
channel.
Three.
Yeah, so it was kind of around other adult oriented shows. And I was thinking to myself, man, this is well produced. Although a Monster of the Week show, it's well produced like a regular, it looks like a regular television show in a lot of ways.
Mm.
But, I think the room to explore that is definitely uh, done interestingly here in this show.
Yeah. Yep, I agree with everything you guys said. My original version of this question was, I wanted to ask, if you had to choose, which would your preference be, adult content or
Hmm.
regular content? And I was like, nah, if I put it that way and I say, well, I'd rather have adult content that could come off sounding like, oh, well, you pervert.
Yeah.
But
Or is it adult content, or is it just sci-fi that has no bounds?
that's a
When
good
you
Right.
put
point.
when you
Right.
put a show on HBO, they take all the restrictions away. Sort of like I know Tasha was talking about it in her on her channel about the show Evil. It
Mm.
first aired on CBS over the air,
Hmm.
and they kind of play by the rules. But as soon as it moved to Paramount Plus, according to her, I haven't seen it myself. According to her, they kind of just went crazy and did everything, start cussing like a sailor. So yeah, I think there's
Yeah.
room for both in the right context.
Yeah. My only thing with that would be, and I'm with what I'm about to say, it's all in perspective because some of the arguments that I've heard about this current season of Doctor Who could fall into this perceptive because they may not have liked
Hmm.
certain aspects of said content.
Yeah.
If I watch something on HBO, like what you said, Clarence, I have a expectation that if I see something, whatever that is, man or woman or whatever they're doing together, woman, woman, man, man, whatever, is I'm watching HBO. That's kind of
Yeah.
a
Yeah.
given. If I'm watching Disney Plus and I'm watching a Marvel movie, that may be a little bit more, or whatever. Or if I'm
Hmm.
watching a Disney Cinderella something, I'm not expecting an adult oriented Cinderella from Disney, you know.
Unless it's
Yeah.
an adult Cinderella.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, not
But
on
but
Disney though.
yeah,
Well,
but you get, it goes back to where you're getting the content. But I
Yeah.
think there's room for everything, just within knowing where it's at and knowing where to find it and all of that good stuff. So that
well, at
being,
some point, I wanted to bring up something about making this episode. And in the chat, Wingrace has pointed out that the first episode of Stargate had full frontal because Showtime demanded it.
Mm.
And that is very much a reality of the streaming universe that there are, and really it has always been this way. Certain movie studios would say, would mandate to actors, you're going to do this, and so you had to have opt-outs in your contract, say, I don't do full frontal, I'll do dorsal, you know. So I would show my butt, but that's, um and so a lot of times, we have a nude scene in it, and so we what happens is your body double comes in for it and so on. And part of what I was thinking about this episode is this terrific performance from Sarah Gregory, who's playing Karis, that she's got to be completely committed to everything she's doing, and all of her energy has to go into it. So when she's being possessed and when she is feeding on these guys, it's got to be carnivorous. It's got to,
Yeah.
she can't hold back. It ruins the whole effect. And now on stage and on screen, you would have somebody on set who is the intimacy director.
Mm.
And I was watching the closing titles this time for exactly this. If there's an intimacy director on this episode, they're not credited.
hmm,
So this may have been before that time. But
Mm.
as time has gone by, more and more actors have sort of stood up and said, "Hey, I'm not really comfortable with this.
Yeah.
I know it's in my contract. I know this is good for my career. I know everybody wants to see my titties, but I'm just not comfortable with the way we're doing it." And so you have somebody on set who's going to be there to make sure everybody's okay, you know, um, with what's happening and how it's being done. And if they're not, then you find another way to do it. And so the intimacy director has a tremendous amount of creative control on the movie sets um, and stage plays too. That's all happened pretty recently.
Mm.
mm,
But I was watching this thinking, are any of these guys that she's jumping on, are they I'm talking about the actors, are they at all uncomfortable with this?
You're
They
just going
say,
for it.
you know, uh, everybody seems to be fully committed, and it's easy to imagine that if you're getting paid for this, you just go with it. But that's not true. People have limits. They do.
Yeah. And
And everybody's are different. So we try to, as professionals now, we try to accommodate for that. So I don't know.
mm,
yeah, that's why I kind of felt like although the actor Sarah Sarah Lloyd was going for it. She definitely was going for it.
Hmm.
I did feel like still there was a semblance of tastefulness because no real the nudity we saw in this episode was from Owen. you know, so
That's
no
true.
no real nudity. So yeah, in that aspect, and the scenes were really up close and personal, but it wasn't to the point where I was like, oh wow, I feel like they did a pretty good job of making it believable, yet not too risque.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. You could make this exact story and for it to just be gross,
Hmm.
Yes,
you
easily.
know,
Yeah.
Yeah.
and it's
You know,
not. It's
they did a good job of, I'm just going to say it what it is. They showed enough skin to add to that adultness of it, but
mhm.
they didn't add enough scene, I will say, to make, as you guys said, make it too much or make it too much
Yeah.
over the top. And I want to bring in a comment that Tasha says. She says that in the show Euphoria, Zendaya might be the only character who hasn't been nude on screen, and the assumption is she must have a clause, quite
Yeah.
possibly.
And being a star of her power, she's in a position where she can do that. She could just say, "My contract is a flat no," and yeah. So
So
yeah.
I want to stay on the alien character and the actor
Mm.
who portrayed the human/alien. And one thing that really stood out to me, and it reminded me of these actors playing split personality characters.
Yes.
She did an awesome job of, you immediately knew when it was the alien and you immediately knew when it was the human. You guys agree? Thoughts?
Yeah, I was looking for that moment because I knew that sooner or later we would hear the alien speak using her voice, and it's when she's locked up, of course, and she talks directly to Gwen, and yeah, I thought, are we going to hear a different voice? But what she did was she changed her demeanor,
Yes.
rather like we saw Clara do in one of the Zygon um, shows. It was just she just stood differently. She held herself differently, and yeah, I thought it was terrific, and it didn't need to be more than that.
Mm, no. What do you think, Clarence?
Yeah, totally agreed. I think the moment that maybe jumped out to me the most was when she was going up the lift and Jack was kind of
Mm,
trying to get the hand back.
yeah.
Yeah, I really noticed it then. And just a credit to the actor, um, just the toll of embodying this symbiote alien, whatever you want to call it. You could see it, especially when she was at home with her father. She was just so dejected and weighed down by the world, and oh man, I felt everything on her face in that moment.
So, why do you guys think the alien chose her?
Didn't they say he read her thoughts? Didn't they say that in the episode?
At least I got that impression that the moment we saw her um, being taken over, she was angry at a man who had done her wrong,
Yeah.
and we learn later her mind is full of revenge.
Mm.
So maybe that's what the entity is looking for.
Hmm.
Was
Some, and usually, sometimes, heightened emotions and then, sexual contact, heightened and sexual contact may produce, as far as the alien is concerned, a more absorbing, more stuff to absorb, I should say.
maybe so. Yeah.
You know,
After watching it again, I was thinking the alien would also have to choose someone of whatever species they're inhabiting who has in their mind that they know that they're sexually desirable.
Yeah.
You couldn't pick somebody that nobody's going to have anything to do with.
so let me ask this
So,
question based on that. And this was
yeah.
one of the things that was, I don't know, I won't say stood out to me or was interesting, but it caught my attention. So we
Mhm.
see that the vampiric nature or the whatever nature of the absorbing happens during intercourse. Okay, we get that. but when she was having the seduction moment with Gwen,
Mhm.
and then realizes, oh, you're not a male, well, and then stopped. I didn't quite understand unless the biology was needed to have that happen, I guess.
I guess so.
Is that what we're to assume there?
That's the way I read that. But in the same moment, we're thinking, well, then Gwen is really getting into it. That's a bit of a surprise. And then we learned that part of the thing is this sort of exuding basically an aphrodisiac, and that's what Gwen's responding to.
Yes.
Or so she says.
Or so she says.
Yeah.
All right, so I want to talk about Gwen for a second. Let's switch off of the alien and go to Gwen. So, seeing that Gwen is the introductory character, we're in 2 episodes now. Lee, how are you liking Gwen so far? Do you feel connected to her yet?
Yeah, I just love Gwen, and it's great that the first episode uses her as our entry point to Torchwood. That we literally follow her down into Torchwood 3, and we learn things as she learns them. And in this episode, we learned that the rest of the team feel like they're outsiders too because they don't know they can't figure Jack out, and I'd forgotten about that. So they're welcoming her on board, like, "Hey, you're a cop. Tell us what you can figure out about this guy, because we're clueless." Um, and I love her and Ryan together so much, and I want them to be okay. I want their relationship to be okay. I want him to be okay. But you know, we've already seen that these kinds of being with the doctor is hard on you. Being in Torchwood is going to be hard on you, and so you have to worry for Gwen and Ryan. But I'm just so drawn to her, and she just seems like such a good, honest, moral person who's capable of error and wants to make it right. In this case, she literally says, "This is all my fault. I will make it right."
Yeah.
Which, I mean, she can't possibly keep that promise, but she says it anyway. You know.
All right, Clarence, what about you? Gwen, what do you think?
Just real quick on what Lee said about the mystery of Jack. That does seem like that's going to be a through line throughout the
Mm.
season. So I'm sure we're going to get more of that. But let me say, as far as Gwen, I love Eve Miles.
Mm-hmm.
She's amazing. And as we watch more of this, I'm remembering that's one of the reasons I really really love the show, because she's just a magnetic actor and portrayal of this character in Gwen. But I do like how at least in this episode, and I guess a little bit in the first episode, how Gwen is kind of playing good cop,
Mm.
and she is kind of turning into the moral compass of the group in a sense. It seems like they've been doing it so long, they've kind of have either become accustomed to what's going on, lost a little bit of heart around the humanity of what's going on. So I love her in that position of good cop. Where does you get that software? You have every face in the UK in a computer. You can't do
Yeah.
that. Just great stuff there. And she continues to question Jack. And in the midst of that, there's I feel like there's an awesome thing of Jack just giving her a little bit back. Say, well, what do you think about that? Well, how can we change that? Well, how would you do this? Every time they did it in this episode, I just smiled a little bit because I thought it was
Mm-hmm.
really really well done.
To me, this is an example of you can have a good actor, a great actor, and they be cast for the wrong role and it not work. And you can have a
Mm.
great actor who is cast for the right role and it really works. And I
Yeah,
think she's the latter. She's a solid actor who was cast for the right role, and she embodies that character, and it feels natural. All the casting to me feels natural. That they did a very good job in casting, but she
Yeah.
particularly gives you that sense of at the same time insecurity, but with strength. You know, she seems genuine in her character. She doesn't feel like, well, I'm just saying the lines. I'm embodying the character. Because think about it, she seems so familiar to us in 2024 because how many times have I seen Journey's End? I've lost count. So just with Journey's End, I've seen Gwen Cooper hundreds of times. You know, so she's
Right.
in my brain.
Sure.
But seeing how she was formed as a character is really fun going back and watching and seeing Gwen not quite be the Gwen that we see in Journey's End, you know, that's kick ass and
Yeah.
take names, where she's still learning and getting her feel of everything.
Yeah, doesn't use a gun yet.
Yes, indeed.
Yeah.
So Clarence, you alluded to this. What do you guys think about this exploration of Jack? Because I'll go ahead and answer my question first. It's hard for me to remember when I didn't realize that Jack was immortal. But what was the kind of the shocker or the wake up moment was the realization when we're watching Torchwood at this point on October the 22nd, 2006, we didn't know yet that Jack was immortal. We didn't know that Jack couldn't die. We just know that at the end of the first series, he died and was resurrected. That's it.
And was left on a space station
Yes.
millennia in the future.
Yes.
How did he get here? Yeah.
So what are
We don't
your
know.
thoughts of, and Lee, why don't you take this one first? What are your thoughts of this exploration of mystery behind Jack?
There's plenty to explore, and I think that's one of the great things about the creation of this series is building it around somebody who is has so much mystery, who likes to talk about himself, likes to talk about his past, but it's all the trivial things. It's all the he likes to make jokes, and you're not sure if he's kidding or not. As we get to know him, we'll think, no, that's actually true. you know, well, what's his joke that he makes about Karis going back and basically killing her old boyfriend with sex? That Jack says, if I tried to go through my back catalog, we'd be doing it until the sun blew up.
Yeah.
So
And with Jack, that's true.
and as we'll find out, that's probably true. So, yeah. But yeah, at this point, we don't know what to make of that. We don't know. What is he talking about? So that's just fun. It's just built up so that we can spend a lot of time trying to unpack things. He's not going to volunteer the truth, so we have to follow all the threads and see if we can solve it ourselves. That's fun.
Clarence, what do you think? You actually brought this topic up. So
Yeah.
what do you think?
I feel like I feel like that the show so far in these 2 episodes is fulfilling its mission, or it's accomplishing whatever the mandate is in my mind of this being a spinoff. What do you think of a spinoff, especially in this case on another network, probably a little later at night, more risque? All the touchstones with Jack so far have made me want to go back and watch or go and look up and research the connections. And you probably could watch it and not care, but how could you watch it and not care? That hand is important to me. Drop
Yeah.
it. What? Just excellently done in that aspect of that's what you want this show to do. You want it to trigger people to go back and what? I need to know more. I need to
Yeah.
know more.
Yeah. Whose hand is that? Why
Yeah.
is that hand important?
I was just thinking about that today, in what amounted to a social media world back then, I remember other fans saying, well, why does he have a hand? And then somebody saying, I think that's the 10th Doctor's hand from, and other people saying, well, that's impossible. I mean, it was dropped, from a mile in the sky over London. Well, You know? I mean,
Mm.
so
And the brilliance of that is how that hand that lives in this series comes back to Doctor Who proper
Yeah.
for a
spoilers.
tie-in spoiler alert,
Spoilers.
that totally ties into a future Doctor Who story of a hand that lived in Torchwood
Yeah,
for seasons.
and also on the Jack mystery, he makes Karis glow in this episode.
Yes, he
It's like,
does.
oh, is he holding back residual Bad Wolf Heart of the
Yeah.
TARDIS time vortex energy inside his
Yep.
body? What is even going on right now? So again, it made me go look and research some more stuff.
Well, and it's early enough that you wonder, is this going to happen every time he kisses somebody?
Right.
You know?
That's cool
Let's
stuff.
see.
Man.
Yeah.
But
And since we're talking about that moment too, I wanted, it was actually in my notes, that hats off to John Barrowman. That I think it's easy for people to dismiss him as an actor because he's such a pretty boy, but that, just watch his face during that whole tussle with Karis over the hand in the jar, because he really does not want to hurt her, but he knows that he may have to. If he has to choose between her and the hand and he doesn't want to,
he'll
he's going
talk
to
to
shoot
the
her.
hand.
He's going to tell her, talk to the hand. But it just, it's all in his face, this internal anguish. He does not want to be in this situation, but here he is and he's got to act on it. It's just, yeah. And then she throws the jar.
So I've got to ask this question, even though we know the hand is okay. Did either of you kind of have whenever the hand the jar got broke, because it was like, oh no, that's the doctor's hand.
I didn't remember that. Yeah.
Yeah, he cradles it like it's dead. It's
And it moves. Yeah,
it's so.
that was so cool. So I want to ask you guys about Owen, Tosh, and Ianto. How do we feel we know them yet? You know, I asked how you guys were liking Gwen, but how about these three? Do you feel like this series and these last two episodes are exploring them? Do you feel like you're starting to know them as characters or not?
I feel like we are, and I hope I'm not remembering too much in the future. But to me, Owen is probably the biggest wild card, because at every turn he's breaking the rules. Of course, they all were breaking them in the previous episode, but he just seems like he's just there for the fun, and of course he's a doctor, so he's there for the research too. But he seems to march to his own beat a little bit. But the other two, I think, are pretty much what I've expected so far. They seem pretty much by the book so far.
Lee, what do you think?
I was actually watching this episode thinking about this very thing, that the way this is written and the way these performers play it is really, really canny for introducing us to them, for making us want to get to know them. And I contrast it with the last year of Discovery, where I started fast forwarding through things as I was watching the last season, because I was thinking, all right, we all love each other. I get it. Everybody on this show loves everybody else. So can we please? And I'm usually not like that, but I just started getting tired of it. And in this episode, these people don't particularly like each other necessarily. They'll take a bullet for each other, but they don't get along. They have very different opinions, and I thought, that's brilliant. Let's give us a group of people who are going to who may not be able to sit down and have a meal together sometimes because they're going to argue about something. That tells us that they have strong points of view, and we want to know about them. And we get flashes of them even now. And as the series goes on, we're going to learn more about what it is that makes them different from each other in ways that they can't reconcile. I mean, yeah. I mean, and I think I agree with Clarence. So the first thing we're getting is that Owen really does play by his own rules. And we've stressed already in these two episodes, we can't have people playing by their own rules down here.
Yeah.
And he keeps doing it anyway. So, and you can't imagine Tosh being like that. So there you go.
What do you think, Clarence?
Agree. I went first.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, I had forgotten. I think I had gotten so wrapped up with
What do
this
you think?
realization that I just came to when Lee was talking that I'd forgotten that you went first. But here's my realization. I was sitting here thinking when you were describing how they were interacting with each other, Lee, and I was comparing it to Doctor Who, and I'm going to state it this way. We've heard the fourth Doctor introduce Sarah Jane Smith as, hello, I'd like to, to introduce you to Miss Sarah Jane Smith. She's my best friend. And then we've heard the 15th Doctor talk about Ruby when he's talking to Rogue, and Rogue asks him, who is this person you were with? And he says, oh, she's my best friend. So the dynamic that we see on Doctor Who are the companions, yes, but these are people that there's a camaraderie and there's a friendship with the Doctor. What you just described here was, in all sense and purpose, work relationships. We may have people that we are friendly with at work,
Right.
but when we leave outside of work, do we interact with 99% of those people? No.
Yeah.
Luckily, Clarence fell into the 1% of that 99% for me. But for the majority, you don't, they don't enter into your personal realm. And I
Right.
think that goes into what you are saying, Lee, is there's this kind of bicker, banter, whatever, but in a professional way, because these people aren't friends, is what I'm going a long way
Right.
around to say.
That's it. Yeah. At the end of this episode, they've all gone their separate ways.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yep, indeed. All right, so we've talked about the concept, we talked about the story, we talked about Jack and Owen, Tosh, and Ianto and Gwen. I want to end by talking about our dear writer of this episode, and we know that we, particularly me, have a kind of a love-hate relationship with Chibnall. What are your thoughts on how he did in executing this story?
Interesting. I had no idea Chibnall wrote this.
Yeah.
Bum, bum, bum.
And that he was a co-producer of this season.
Yes.
Really?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
You know what? I think it may. I enjoyed this story, and I think it may fall again in the category of what we were saying before about Chibnall, that he might have some pretty good writing, decent ideas when it's given to somebody else to execute. He's not in total control of everything. Maybe it works a little bit better. And that's how I feel in this case. I never would have thought he wrote this, if I'm being honest.
Mm-hmm. All right, Lee, what do you think?
The same, exactly the same. I remembered that I really liked this episode, and I was watching it again. That name jumped out of the opening titles to me, and I said, "Okay, then let's let's have a look at this." And then at the end, I said, "I think that's really, really good. I think this is a difficult story to tell, and it's tightly written, and there's little character moments in it that are unforgettable." And I just think, wow, Chris Chibnall. This is the Chibnall we know from Broadchurch,
Yes, yes, yes. And, I preface...
which will star Eve Miles at one point, by the way.
Yes, indeed. So, I made a point of saying the love-hate relationship, but I'm going to go into the love part of the relationship with Chibnall because I loved it. I thought he did a great job. I didn't get bored. There wasn't all the things that I disliked about some of the things I've disliked in his other work that he's done. So, I thought it was very good. And it even led me to say, okay, if he's writing the next one, so be it. I enjoyed this one. I'm still going to have to pick at him a little bit. I can't help it, but I can, be man enough to say, hey, you wrote it. I enjoyed it. Kudos to you. Good job, because it was a good episode. So that being said, any other items before we get into our favorites?
A little bit of detail that I noticed right at the end there. I wonder who is responsible for this. It might be the kind of thing that would be in the script. It might be something that a set dresser would suggest. The director would say, "Oh, that's great. Let's go for it." Did y'all notice that we went to see Eddie, Karis's old boyfriend, who apparently is married, and she was thinking he was going to leave his wife. In the background of that whole conversation is a baby crib.
Mm, I
And it
didn't
just
know.
makes you think, wow, if I didn't hate this guy already. Wow. Okay. Anyway. And it's just a little detail. There's no dialogue about it or anything. It's just there. Like,
You could have saved yourself.
you've got a wife and a kid. Yeah. So yeah, now he's a pile of dust. So there you
Yeah,
go.
he was dusty. I will say this, and I don't know what scene it was in, but there's some scene that there is a picture of the castle, I think, that was used in Tooth and Claw, where the Torchwood Institute was first mentioned, but I
Oh,
don't know exactly which scene it is, but
oh,
FYI. All right,
interesting. Yeah.
Clarence, anything else from you before we get to favorites?
I feel like I thought the SUV scene was pretty cool. It was tight quarters, but they had the proper kit in there to impress. I thought that was pretty fun. I love the whole rat jam moment. Well, love is a strong word. I thought it was interesting, the whole rat jam moment. Um, in a explicit, well, a straightforward way to identify what would happen to Karis if she did not get the entity out of her. I thought that was good, and also the callback to when Owen stole. Well, he used the tech without his permission. Jack uses it at the end to trap the alien. So
Yes.
good stuff all around.
All right, so favorite scene. Clarence, it's your birthday. Go first.
My favorite scenes and favorite quote are centered around cameras. Ironically, uh, my first one is, or my favorite scene is when the group were watching Karis and Gwen make out. Owen is like, "Hello, happy birthday to me."
Just going to hit record here.
Yeah. Wow.
Uh, all right, Lee, what was your favorite scene?
Well, now I'm wondering, is there something wrong with us? That was my favorite scene too, and uh, is it seeing Sarah Gregory and Eve Miles making out that I liked about that, or just that it's funny
Yeah.
that she is in the clutches of the alien who we know kills, and we don't know if she's going to be okay or not. But then there's still Owen just kind of grooving on it, and
Mm.
even when Jack says, "We got to get down there," he goes,
They
"Yeah."
all just, they all just
I
look at
just
him like,
No, we
"Whoa."
really have to.
no, right now I'm going to hit record for. Is that okay? I don't know. This is.
All
I
right.
did love that.
So I was going, and I'll go ahead and say this at up front. This was actually going to be my honorable mention if you guys didn't mention it. So I'm glad you did, because where you guys were focusing on him watching them, I was just focusing on the fact that all three of them were sitting there watching this going on, and I'm
Yeah,
thinking, okay, she's about to get killed. This
yeah,
is and I'm like, okay, voyeuristic much?
a little bit.
But for me, my favorite scene was when the hand broke out of the jar and Jack's response to it.
Yeah,
I got to go back to the doctor, and that was my tie to the doctor. So the
and
hand scene
I'm sure you
was,
caught the little bit of the 10th Doctor theme there when
yes, yeah,
did
I
the
did not.
Yep.
do.
Yep.
Yep.
So that, regardless of what, the hand had a job to do. So woohoo, that was my favorite scene.
Hey, we got hand job in there too tonight. Well done.
Breaking all the rules.
Okay.
All right. So,
Well, all right then.
well, all right. And that's all right then. All right. Favorite quote. And Clarence, still your birthday yesterday. I'm going to stay with you. Favorite quote.
I love the other security footage scene when they in the nightclub in the bathroom when they ask the security guard, "How do you know?" And they go there and they watch the video, and they're just standing all around like, "Wow, my God, he's just came and went."
Yeah.
Jack interjects at the end.
Has to be said.
Yes. All right. Lee, favorite quote.
Well, mine is also a cheap joke from Jack. Put your trousers on and get out. It always breaks my heart to say those words.
Okay. So mine is also from Jack, but not one that's below the belt. It's he literally took a higher road with this one.
Nice.
It was, remember this, when you're dealing with Torchwood, nothing is what it seems. All right, so final rating. For anyone in the chat, if you would like to give your final rating 1 out of 5, then please do so. We'll come back. But Clarence Brown, final rating. What say you?
I will give this 4.1 rat jams out of 5.
Okay. 4.1.
Yeah.
Lee Shackelford. What say
Well,
you?
I completely loved it, so I'm giving it 5 liquid sky imitations out of 5.
All right. So, okay. I'm going to give this 5 hand jars, 5 hands in a jar out of 5.
Yeah.
Whoa, buddy.
So I really enjoyed it.
Watch your language.
And I love the fact, because I've been waiting to do this thinking, oh, this is going to be such a dance to get around the innuendos and whatnot. And it has been, and it's been fun. All right.
Call
So
this discussing who out the dark.
indeed, Torchwood style. Yes.
Yeah.
All right. So
I've been hoping that it goes without saying, right? If the, yeah, we're talking about Torchwood now. The kids may want to leave the room. I don't know.
Kyle, this is an opportunity to make your content warning bumper to put at the beginning.
Yes,
of the episode.
That's true.
Spoilers and content warnings.
Yes.
yes, that would be cool. I think I do. You're right. I think I need to have some kind of warning. You have now reached Torchwood.
Mm-hmm.
Explicit content coming.
No turning back.
All right. So we see from our friend Janet Hall. Welcome, Janet. She's giving it 3. Wynn Grace is giving it 4 redacted out of 5. Okay, then. That's all right, then.
Exactly. When Grace doing their own censoring.
Yes, indeed.
Good.
4 redacted. Not retracted, redacted.
Redacted, yes.
Out of 5.
Yeah, if only we had this purple sex alien during when Thanos had to kill half of the people. He could have just released this upon the masses, and then it would just took care of itself.
I
That's
guess.
put away.
Yeah, but it would only have been men.
Oh, good point.
Well, yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe that's for the better.
Yeah.
Well,
Then everybody would have been Wonder Women. So there you go.
Tasha says I'm just here for the ride. So
Oh, I
Okay.
see what you did there. I see what you did there, Tasha.
Oh, okay then. And that one, it gives the ultimate for the night, our friend Tasha. That gives the ultimate. Well, that's all right then for the night. All right, so gentlemen, any other things? This has been so much fun. Any other items before we leave?
No, man. Enjoyed this episode.
Indeed.
seeing Tasha here reminds me I would encourage everybody who doesn't already know that you need to be listening to Discussing Trek, on which Tasha is often a brilliant and insightful guest, and all under the leadership of Mr. Clarence Brown.
Indeed, indeed.
And occasionally heaving out the anchor that is Kyle Jones, pulling it down. And yeah.
Thank you, sir.
Indeed, indeed. All right. Well, Lee, I have to say one last thing before we go, because I've been meaning to say it every time I look at the backdrop. When you sit up straight, in your chair, and the way the image is behind your head, it looks like you're about to regenerate, because it looks like regeneration energy.
Artron energy, yeah.
Yes.
Or either that or I'm about to become a pile of dust. Okay. Anyway.
All right, so I have to pick up a comment from our friend Wynn Grace to end the night with before I do our final closing. And Wynn Grace says, "What a different type of toy maker this episode would have had."
Oh, boy.
And with that, we will be back. Yes, indeed.